All right, let's get down to business. You all know why we're here. The Springans are story relevant, and we forgot to give them any good cards. Anyone got any ideas? Johnson.
I don't know, we could do what we always do and give them a rota.
A good start, good start. Give me a little more.
We could make it cycle?
More.
We could make it a quick play? Sir, are you-
More! You can do more!
We'll give him a soul charge!
Perfect. Now give them a second one.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. I was shocked, I tell you, that Konami once again didn't give me any archetypes to premiere for the new set. But old heads remember, I've never let that keep me down before. Just like in 2020 when I showed off Springans when no one else would, I'm here to show you that Sargass can kick some Sarg ass. Presenting Springans. Look, I know this looks comprehensible, but I promise you they added another R to X blower. So here's the list. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck just got a huge redesign, but it's still the #1 place to go for a pack simulator, a card database, and a wealth of strategy articles. I personally use the site to post every 10-minute testing list and every Chalice Line Monthly Top Cut entry. Give it a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. With that, let's slide into Springans. Springans, the least interesting members of the Albaz lore, well, except for Ice Jade. And we don't talk about Ice Jade. Are a series of machines inhabited by soot spirits. In-game, the Springans are an archetype that uses their field spell, Gold Golgonda, to summon powerful Xyz monsters onto empty board states. In lore, the Springans spent most of the story chillin' with Kit in the Great Sand Sea, until Sargas and Kit went to the Therion Disc Coliseum to get the weapons that could destroy the Despia. In doing so, Sargas had to beat every member of the Therions and emerged as the champion Sargas, wielding the big gun from Tally-Ho. And wouldn't you know it, those are the two cards we're talking about today. While Springans is no stranger to broken cards, they're well known for their combination Foolish Burial and Rhoda, the new support really pushes the limits of what you're allowed to write on a card before the player base's drool causes an irreparable game state. Tally-Ho is a combination Rhoda and Soul Charge, which recycles itself, and Sargas is a downard that adds a card on summon and pops a card on detach. I'm actually at a loss for how these cards could have been more pushed. An Alba loss, if you will. That would be funny if you read the Albaz lore. The icing on this cake is that this unbelievable, hyper-consistent deck doesn't need its normal summon. So we're playing a Cyberstein line. If we're already playing a retrain of every other ban-worthy card, we might as well add Scientist 2. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, the Springans. All of these monsters have the same second effect, which is if they're in your hand, field, or graveyard, you can attach them to a Springans Xyz monster you control as material. This one, on normal or special summon, targets a Great Sand Sea, Gold Golgonda, or a Springans in your graveyard and adds it to your hand. Brothers, if it's sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, allows you to target a Springans monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. Sargas is the black sheep of the bunch. He's actually good. This allows you to, during your opponent's turn, detach a material from an Xyz monster you control, target a face-up card on the field, and destroy it. And if a Springans Xyz monster has this card as material, it gains 500 attack. And finally, Branga, which we're playing as a 1-of for part of a Branded in High Spirits line, can banish itself and a Springans monster with a different name from your graveyard to add a Springans card from your deck to your hand. After that, we've got Springans Kit, which, if you have a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material on your field or in your graveyard, allows you to special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is normally special summoned, you can add to your hand one of your branded spell traps that is banished, or in your graveyard, or in your deck, then place a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. You may know this from Despia, but here she's pulling double duty. After that, we've got some Ishizu cards, 3 copies of Kelbeck, which is both a very powerful hand trap, and a Miller, decent in our strategy, and then 2 cards that flex extremely well with our setup, 3 copies of Mudora and 3 copies of Keldo. It's wonderful to get 4 material on your side of the field, and it helps interrupt almost everything that would give us pause. It also allows us to recycle a series of monsters that we really need to in order to do our line again the next turn. After that, we've got some fun-ofs, 1 copy of Therion King Regulus. Champion Sargas can search a Therion, and this is a pretty good one. 1 copy of Cyberstein, which we are usually finding by way of Gear Gigant X. You'll see the line in action momentarily, and it'll make a lot more sense. And 1 copy of Diviner of the Herald. This can send any fairy from your deck to the graveyard. If you need material engrave, you send a Kelbeck. If you need a Shuffler, you send one of those. And, you know, it's a pretty good reborn off of Sprite Elf. After that, we've got the spells. 3 copies of Springans Watch. This card adds a Great Sand Sea Gold Golganda from your deck to your hand, or if you already have one, you can add a Springans from your deck to your hand and send one from the deck to the graveyard as well. 3 copies of Tally-Ho Springans. When you activate this card, you can detach up to 3 materials from monsters you control, usually from the bottom of a champion Sargus, and then you get to add a Springans monster from your deck to your hand. Then if you detach materials at activation, special summon that many Springans monsters from your hand or graveyard. If this card's in your graveyard, you can target an Xyz monster on the field, attach a material from it, and if you do, add this card to your hand. As a result, we're trying to make a format Sargass, detach 3, and then use the last one to cycle this card once again. But our Sargass has to live, which is kind of a tall order. Usually he's either dying or we're winning. After that, we've got 3 copies of Springans Booty. If a face-up Xyz monster you control leaves the field by card effect, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls. Neither player can activate that effect monster's effects on the field this turn. All of that text didn't matter. The important part of this card is you can send it directly to the graveyard from face-up to add a Gold Golganda directly from your deck to your graveyard to your field spell zone. The Gold Golganda itself is next. All Springans Xyz monsters gain 1,000 attack, and the next 2 effects are a hard once. If you control no Springans Xyz, you can discard a Springans, so special summon a Springans Xyz from your extra deck, usually Merrymaker. If a face-up Xyz monster you control leaves the field by card effect, you can target a monster your opponent controls. It cannot attack for the rest of the turn. We're playing 1 copy of Branded in High Spirits. You get to reveal a monster in your hand, then send a level 8 fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard with the same type that has 2,500 attack or defense. Then discard the revealed monster, add a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that mentions it from your deck to your hand. During the end phase, if a fusion monster was sent to your graveyard this turn, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand, and of course you can only use 1 of those per turn. Sprind is our target for this. After that, we've got 1 copy of Called by the Grave and 3 Infinite Impermanence. In the extra, we've got Naturia Exterio as our Cyberstein target, Sprind as our Branded in High Spirits target, Zeus, 2 copies of Gigantic Champion Sargus, which once per turn can be Xyz summoned by using a Springans Xyz monster you control, and it keeps material. If it has material, you can add a Springans or Therion card from your deck to your hand. If a material is detached from a monster on the field, including itself, except during damage, you can target a card on the field, destroy it, or return it to the hand. All of those are hard onces, like it matters. We've got 1 copy of X-Blowerer for corner cases, Gear Gigant X, Abyss Dweller, Double Merrymaker. If this card is specialed from the extra deck, you get to send a Springans monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then during your opponent's main or battle phase, you can banish this card till the end phase, and if it was banished with 2 or more materials, you can send a fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard that lists Fallen of Albaz. We're on 1 Gigantic Sprite, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, an Ausa, 1 copy of Sprite Elf, and 1 IP Masquerena, which is usually part of our end board. In the side, we're on 3 Lava Golem, 3 Triple Tactic Thrust. Ugh, don't like the localization of this one. 3 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Evenly Matched, and 3 Solemn Judgment. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Bestial Dragonlink, and yeah, this is about as good a hand as this deck can possibly produce. Let me show you what we can do going first. We'll begin with a copy of Springans Booty. That's going to go to the graveyard to tag out for a Gold Golganda. We'll activate the effect of the Gold Golganda, pitching a Rocky for a Merrymaker. We'll activate the effect of the Merrymaker to send a Brothers, then the effect of the Rocky and the Brothers in the graveyard to equip themselves to the Merrymaker. Here we're going to overlay for a Sargus, then activate Sargus effect. Because we already have Tally-Ho, we'll go for a Regulus. Tally-Ho time, we'll go ahead and detach everything to get a Springans kit, the Rocky, and the Brothers. Then in a new chain, activate the effect of the Rocky, blocking the kit, and cycle back the copy of Merrymaker while we add a Branded in High Spirits. We'll activate Branded and send that Brango we added to hand to the graveyard before going for a Gear Gigant X, and now it's time to search the Cyberstein. From here we can go for Regulus before our opponent can negate anything, and down comes the Druis Worm at the last point they could activate it. We'll go into a Masquerena and normal summon the Cyberstein. We'll activate the effect for an Exterio, and then let's extend just a little farther. We're going to go for an Elf, bringing back the Cyberstein, then overlaying for a Gigantic Sprite, then activating Branga's effect to get ourselves a copy of Watch. We'll activate Watch in order to grab a copy of Brothers to hand and a Sargus to the graveyard. Then we're going to go for a Sprite, activating the effect of the Diviner of the Herald we summoned to send a Keldo. We'll pass back to our opponent, and they've got a lot of cleanup to do. They're going to normal summon a Tracer and attempt to go battle. We will activate Masquerena. They'll activate the effect of Tracer, targeting their Druis Worm. We'll activate the effect of our Regulus, and then we'll make a Unicorn at Resolution and spin that Druis Worm back. We're going to go for the Brothers effect in graveyard, bringing back the Sargus, and then at Resolution activate Sargus to pop the Tracer. They'll concede, and we'll go next. Pretty convincing game 1, so our game 2 is up against Swordsoul. I don't know why people aren't playing this deck. It seems fine. We're going first once again, and here's what happens when we're interrupted just a little bit. We're going to begin with a copy of Gold Golganda. We'll activate the effect, pitching this copy of Rocky in order to make a Merrymaker. We'll activate Merrymaker, and our opponent is going to chain Infinite Impermanence. Not a big deal, because Watch can put an additional monster into our graveyard, and then we can activate the effect of those monsters, Brothers and Rocky here, to make a Sargus once again. We'll activate Sargus to get a copy of Therion King Regulus, and then we'll fire off Tally-Ho and summon 3 monsters. We'll go for the kit activation in a new chain blocked, of course, by Rocky, cycling back that Merrymaker, and then at Resolution, we're going to grab from deck to hand the Branded in High Spirits. We'll fire that off, and we already have the Branga this time. We get another kit here. We're going to go for Gear Gigant X so we can grab ourselves a copy of Cyberstein. Then we're going to special the kit so we can make a copy of Abyss Dweller before we go further. We'll go Cyberstein here in order to summon a Naturia Exterio, and then let's make it 2. We'll make Sprite Elf, and then use the effect of the Regulus to summon itself, and afterwards Elf to bring back this copy of Cyberstein. Let's overlay for a copy of Gigantic. Then we'll activate Gigantic in order to summon a Diviner, and then activate Diviner in order to send a Kelbeck. We'll activate Kelbeck and Abyss Dweller in sequence, and realize our opponent isn't on Tearlament like I feared. We'll go for this copy of Gigantic Champion Sargus afterwards to bounce this copy of Diviner. We only have 3,000 life points after all, and end on a Masquerena. We're going to go for the Abyss Dweller in draw phase. They'll chain infinite impermanence, no big deal. We can negate that with Exterio, and then in main phase 1, they're going to fire off a Pot of Desires. That's Exterio number 1. After resolution, they're going to Ashuna.gif, and of course we do have something for that as well. The IP Masquerena is going to allow us to go into a Unicorn, pitching the last card in our hand to shuffle it back. They're going to fire Emergence, we're going to negate, and with 1 negate still on our side of the field, they decide to concede. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing, what else? Shizu Tearlament. God, I love that Photon Hypernova made this deck stronger. We're going second, so let's see what we can accomplish on the draw. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Scream. This is kind of a weird hand. They're going to go for Rhino Heart and Scream in sequence, and they hit an Agido. So they're going to go Havness 1, Agido 2, Celiac 3. That's going to grab a Sheeran to hand, and then mill a whole bunch of cards. Looks like they hit not only a Kit, but also a copy of Cyberstein and a Brothers. We're going to use Brothers here for Kit, and this is going to get crusty. They're going to go Kit Close. We're going to activate Kit in a new chain and grab High Spirits. Then they're going to go Keldo, pitching a Mudora. Afterwards, we're going to activate the effect of the Sheeran, and they're going to send from hand to graveyard a copy of Kelbeck, which will bin another 5, including a Branga for us. That opens up a lot of really interesting stuff. They'll make Kaleido Heart here and use Kaleido Heart to spin back Kit, no big deal. They're going to Mudora here to put that Cyberstein and that Branga back in our deck before we can do anything, and then go for a Redoer, trigger the effect of the Kit Close, do the Yoinky Sploinky, hit 8 here, but I think they're pretty much out of names. They do hit a Tearlaments Kashtira here, but no big deal. They'll go for Elf and pass. We'll draw for turn, and this is a nice hand. They're going to go for a copy of Redoer in standby, and we'll begin with a Keldo. After resolution, they'll activate Scream, which will mill 3, and it is an unbelievable 3. That's 2 names. We're going to activate the Keldo on field to negate it, and the Kelbeck in sequence in order to stop the Time Thief Redoer, which forces out the Redoer, and then a new chain activates the effect of Sheeran because it was underneath. Afterwards, we're going to go into a Rukalos. We're going to normal summon a Rocky. We'll activate Rocky. They'll activate Keldo to blank the Rocky, but we do have 2 4s on our side of the field, so we might be able to do something. We'll go into Merrymaker. We'll activate Merrymaker's effect, sending a Branga, and oh, that triggers the Kelbeck in hand. Oh, Kelbeck is a disaster for this deck. We'll go Branga here, and we do have access to Gold Golgonda, so after firing off the High Spirits, we will set it. They're going to go for Tearlaments Kashtira. We just need them to whiff, and they're going to hit, unfortunately, a card that causes the Kaleido Heart to trigger. Okay, we'll go next. So it's time for game 2, and oh, this is going to be a weird one. So you can see we have enough in hand to go off, but our opponent also has a copy of Havness. That's going to turn on our tasking, so get ready. We're going to begin with a copy of Keldo. That's going to summon the Keldo to our side of the field and grab Mudora. We're going to normal summon the Mudora and make a copy of Merrymaker. We'll trigger the effect of the Merrymaker, which prompts the Havness from our opponent. They mill 3, and one of them is a Miller. Okay, they'll activate all of those, and then at resolution, they will go for the effect of the Havness and the Tearlament Kashtira and the Agido. We do have a Shuffler, so we're going to use Keldo to blank one of those names. They also have a Shuffler, so they're going to make their deck just a little bit better and shuffle back some good cards we hit. After resolution of this chain, they're going to mill 5 more, and then we're going to activate the effect of the Brothers. They're going to activate the Rhino Heart. We're going to activate the Mudora that we hit, and they're going to activate their Mudora in order to stop us. Oh my goodness, these chains. It's turn 1. Okay, no big deal. At resolution of this entire chain, we can tasking. That's going to get us a watch for a gold C later. We will equip to the Merrymaker and make a format Sargass. We'll activate Sargass's effect to get a copy of Springans Tally Ho. They'll go for Tearlament Kashtira, send the top 3 to the graveyard, and unfortunately they do hit a name, which means we need to chain that Tally Ho in order to get as many material to our side of the field as possible. At resolution, they're going to make a Kit Kalos, and then the chain's going to look like this. We will go Kit 1, Sargass 2, they will go Kit Kalos 3, and then we can bounce the Kit Kalos to return it to the extra so it isn't able to effectively resolve. After resolution, we'll go for an Abyss Dweller, fire off the watch, go for a Gold Golgonda, set a Solemn Judgment, and pass back to our opponent. It's not a beautiful board, but it does what it has to. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Mudora, then they're going to normal summon a Rhino Heart. Shoot. Yeah, I unfortunately actually do have to Solemn Judgment that. They're going to go for Instant Fusion afterwards. We will activate Sargass in response to get the 4 off their side of the field because we do not want them making a rank. They're going to go for a Kit Kalos. We can use Sargass once again to bounce that bad boy, but it does allow them to add a card from their deck to their hand. They're going to grab a Tearlaments Kashtira, walk over our copy of, unfortunately, the Abyss Dweller, and then proceed to the end phase with a Pellerino up. That Celiac set is going to do a lot of work as we go to the battle phase. They will activate it. That's going to allow them to send 1 monster from their field to the graveyard, then in a new chain activate the effect of the Havness in order to get into a Rhino Heart. That'll trigger the Rhino Heart and this copy of Pellerino, so I guess we might as well hang it up. So we're back with the deck, and impressive, but couldn't beat Tearlament. Now, where have I heard that 3,000 times before? Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1. This deck's mainline combo is laughably easy to access. You can use extremely generic stuff to get to extremely specialized end bosses. 2. Thank goodness we're a rank 4 deck. This gives us access to Abyss Dweller, theoretically Baguska, of course Stein, and even in a pinch, a big, shooty Time Wind Con. And 3, the full combo is almost unoutable. Access to Exterio means that some matchups are unlosable. And the cons. 1, it's not particularly good at playing through interruption. Obviously, stuff like Ashes is an all-time unplayable, but if people pick it up again, it's going to be a disaster for this deck. 2, Kelbeck. So most decks are playing Kelbeck for its graveyard effect and using its hand trap effect once in a blue moon, but it's an FTK against us. And 3, board breakers tend to eat this alive. You're mostly all in on Exterio for fielding those for you, meaning you've got nothing to do against Dark Ruler. All in all, it's a fantastic candidate for coolest YouTube combo, and I expect it to be at minimum playable in the upcoming format, but it's not where it needs to be to hang with the big boys. Sorry, Sargass. Thanks for watching. I'd like to give a quick shout out to my patrons on patreon.com, but specifically Elena Tincher, Alex Dominguez, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, BB Poison, Brett Henry, Chaotic Meatball, Crispy, Dank Magician of Chaos, DJ Elephant, Going Down Swinging, Grant Curry, John Piet, Jordan Coons, Jordan Devereaux, King Magic Ruler, Night Mary, Lockstone, Materiality, MBT Play Madolce, Megalith is Fake Goth, Mike Carlotti, NC Conroy, NH6574, Rose Lapine, Bruce Mosquito, Sarah Routledge, Solar Flare, Tolarian 101, Troy Says By Erasure is Gay, Vincent Storm, Wave Motion Ganon, Wonder Waffle, and Yor. Couldn't have done it without you.